Okay, man. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, how are you? It is Friday, Jummah Mubarak. How you guys doing? Man, the best day of the week. I made it. It is Friday around 11:35 on Friday afternoon in Southern California. I hope that wherever you are, you are well. You are well. You are content in your soul, and you are ready to meet your Maker. If that day is tomorrow, if that day is today, that you have lived a life that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is my wish. It's my wish for myself. It's my wish for all of you. We don't know how much time we've got left. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, so by the way, I am live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook right now. I'm like, I'm super live. I'm all the way live. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is the Men of Deen podcast. Men of Deen is a community of practicing Muslims, and it represents the highest value of the Ummah. Um, it's one thing to be a Muslim, it's another thing to be a practicing Muslim, to center your life around the Deen, to try and live your life according to the guidance that is granted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what I try to do. And that's the community that I'm trying to build. And that is what Men of Deen represents. If you are a practicing Muslim and you are wanting to get married, I can help, inshallah. You can reach me right here on Instagram. You can also hit me at hearthunter at menofdeen.com, HEART Hunter at menofdeen.com. So let's get into it. I was having a conversation with a young man who was looking for a wife, well, about to get married. So he's engaged, and his parents have introduced him to a young lady. And he's here in the United States. He's a Muslim brother. And the girl that he has met is from his home country, but she was raised here. And so, as I'm talking to him, and the thing is that, it's quite tricky to get married these days because, well, I guess it's always been tricky, but I think it's trickier now because of all the pollution that is kind of swimming around in the mind of the brothers and sisters in the Ummah, but primarily the sisters, I would say. And the reason why I say primarily the sisters is because the women are the target of all of this propaganda and this mass effort to weaken and destroy the Ummah by destroying the Muslim family. Okay, it's targeted at the women. Okay, and this social media obsession is a big part of it. Okay, what happens, and there's a lot going on with men. Okay, but what's happening to the men is collateral damage. The targets are the women, and so they're taking the brunt of this. And so it's very hard, to navigate when you meet a Muslimah who is in the West, from the West. Um, okay. Assalamu alaikum, sweetheart. I'm live on Instagram now. It's very hard to know what is swimming in the minds of the sisters that are born and raised and cultivated in the West. And so as I'm talking to this young man, I emphasize to him the following, that it's critical for him to make sure that his wife to be um, wants to submit to him. Um, and I told him, if make sure you have this conversation. Make sure you explicitly and expressly tell her that you expect that she will submit to you. And I told him to have this conversation with her in person, not email, not, you know, through screens, that he needs to look her in her eyes when he has this conversation, because he has to see her reaction. He has to see her reaction, because it's easy to say something. It's much harder to do it. But many times, if you're looking at someone in the eyes, you can have a true understanding of how something impacts them. And I just told him, if he senses 1 ounce of hesitation when he explains to her the importance to him of her submitting to him as her husband, that he needs to head for the hills. It doesn't make a difference how much preparation, um, you know, people invited, who knows about it, families that talk. I just told him, if he says that he expects her to submit and to him as the husband, and she hesitates, or she wants to talk about a partnership or any of this feminist Western nonsense, to leave her alone. And I could tell that when I was talking to him about this particular aspect, his mind was reeling. He was really thinking. He was nodding his head. Something was there, you know. And I think that he hadn't really thought about it. He hadn't really thought about that. And that's not something you can afford to miss. Um, you can't miss that. This you can't bring this Western feminism, quasi-feminism, any of that into your home as a Muslim. It does not belong in Islam. And he had this really serious look in his eyes, and it was kind of disappointment. He kind of looked down, and he was nodding, as if he really was not wanting to deal with what he was feeling. It's not a comfortable conversation, but you better have it now, before you get married, before you have a child with somebody whose mindset you don't understand. Okay. And I told him, listen, man, I said, you're the prize, you know, if you are now, but there's a catch. Okay. There's a catch. And we are not the prize because we're men. Okay. We are the prize if we are practicing Muslim men. And I know this because I've got a daughter, and my daughter is going to need a husband, and she is years away from the time when she's a decade and change away. Okay. So I'm speaking into the future, and I am already trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to find, and there's 8 billion people, 4 billion men on this planet. How am I going to find a man who is going to do for my daughter what I do for my daughter? It is the most impossible equation to solve. And I don't know how to solve it, which is why I'm getting a head start, on how to do it. How do I meet a young man, and he tells me that he's practicing, and the bar for practicing isn't it's not really high. You know, do you pray 5 times a day? And when you pray, do you pray in earnest, or are you just going through the motions? Are you fasting? Do you fast during the month of Ramadan? Do you pay your zakat? Do you try to do what is good and abstain from what is bad? You know, outside of what is obligatory, do you fast outside? Now, and the more of this the brother does, is the more confident that I can feel that he's going to be a good husband to my daughter. But to find somebody that's willing to love and care and be empathetic and deal with, my daughter's ups and downs, to be patient with her and understanding for the rest of her life, to be a strong leader and a good husband, a good father to her children, to my grandchildren. It's a daunting task. But when I find this brother, man, when I find this brother, he's definitely he's definitely the prize. He's definitely the prize. Um, and so you're not the prize just because you have a pair of balls. You are the prize because as a practicing Muslim man, the equation is actually quite simple. If you meet a sister, you know, and you meet these criteria that you are practicing, that you pray 5 times a day, that you fast during Ramadan. When you pray in earnest, that you pay your zakat, that you really do your best to do good deeds and abstain from bad deeds, and you meet a sister and you explain this to her, and it's apparent to her that this is the life that you lead, that you have built your life to the extent that you can around your Deen, and the reaction of this sister is that it's not enough, that somehow she wants something more than this, that you don't make enough money, that you don't have enough status, or you're not tall enough, or you're not built enough, and again, my assumption, again, when I'm talking about a practicing Muslim, okay, you can't be walking around fat, okay, because a strong Muslim is better than a weak Muslim. And so when I'm talking about practicing, I'm including within that the respect that you have for yourself. You don't have to be the fittest of the fit, but you have to be conscious about your physical condition. You have to take care of your physical condition, your physical appearance. You cannot be a slob. I'm not talking to you. If I'm talking about a practicing Muslim man, okay, inherent in practicing is the care, concern, and prioritization of your physical health, your physical fitness, and your appearance. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so if you are a practicing brother, and with that, you don't meet her standard, then guess what? Leave her alone, because you're the prize. You are the prize. If what if the criteria that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for you to get to Jannah is not good enough for her, you need to leave her alone. It's that simple. You cannot walk into a situation, into a relationship where you are spending your life trying to achieve a standard that is set by your wife, that is beyond the standard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set for you. Is it good to have nice things? Is it good to have more money? I guess, but not really, not necessarily. I know many financially wealthy people. I know many financially wealthy men, they live a lavish and luxurious lifestyle. Like I know many of them. They travel at will. They're going here, they're going there, they're invited to the best parties, they have the best cars, they have multiple houses and vacation homes, and they can kind of they're free of financial constraints. I don't want their life. I don't want their wives, and I don't want their children. I don't want it. You know, I know these men. They're good men. I'm not saying that they're bad men, but I am saying that there is a contentment and a power, an internal strength that comes with living your life a certain way. And money is a big distraction. This is the truth. Money and all that money brings is a big distraction from the reason why we're here. And that is not to say that money is bad. It's not bad, but money is a test in and of itself. Um, so, because I'm hearing that a lot from brothers that, from my understanding of these brothers. I mean, as a man, you can look at another man and you can know if the man is serious, if he's focused, if he's on point, if he's taking care of his business. And I meet a lot of these brothers, and I just hear from them that they've got to jump through hoops to get married, and primarily their financial and status hoops, that somehow, even though they meet the criteria of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they meet, they're doing their best to meet the criteria that God has set for them as men to make it to Jannah, to die and be able to stand in judgment in front of their maker and feel as much as you can that you've lived a life that is pleasing to your maker. These brothers are doing that, but yet and still, it's not enough for the woman that they want to marry. Like, how is that possible? Make that make sense. So these sisters have a standard that is higher than God's standard for these men. No, brother, listen, if you're practicing, you're the prize. Okay? The reality is, as a man, we don't have a shelf life. If we manage our lives properly, we take care of our bodies, we make sure that we're living according to the Deen, we don't have a shelf life. If you want to start your family at 35, start your family at 35. If you want to start it at 65, start it at 65. We get to choose. If you want to marry a sister who's 15 years younger than you, marry a sister who's 15 years younger. If you want to marry a sister who's 10 years older, marry a woman who's 10 years older. We get to choose. Okay? Women don't get to choose this way. And there is a reason why God has made it this way. If you're a 50-year-old woman, you can't marry a 20-year-old guy. It's not going to happen. And if you do, he's not marrying you for you. Now, obviously, there's a danger for that with sisters as well. But it is much more realistic and much more reasonable that even if you're a man of advanced age, that a younger lady can marry you for the right reasons, And yes, of course, part of that is provision. But that's when discernment comes into the picture. But that discernment, to really understand a woman's motivation for marrying you, you have to have that discernment no matter how old you are, no matter how old she is. There are gold diggers everywhere. So the point is, brothers, is that we are the prize. But the caveat to that, us being the prize, is that you must be on Deen. And with that, you being the prize, because you're on your Deen, there is a humility that comes with that. There is an inherent and necessary humility that comes with you being the prize and knowing that you are the prize. If you think about it, think if you're, 200, 250 pounds, 6 foot, 6 foot five, good looking, well off, strapping man, you know, and you're physically strong and physically fit, and you're, a martial artist or a fighter, you know, there is a humility that comes into knowing that you can handle any situation at any time. It shouldn't make you arrogant. It should make you humble. Okay. And so knowing that you're the prize doesn't mean that you walk around looking down on other men or feeling that you can abuse emotionally, physically, or financially abuse your spouse because you are the man, and everything revolves around you and you got to submit to me. No, 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 it's not. It's not arrogance. Um, and the reason why I focus so much on that submission aspect is because I know that a righteous woman submits to her husband, a righteous woman. And so that that's unequivocal. Obviously, if you are a practicing Muslim man, you you want to, you need to marry a woman who strives to be righteous. Like, how can you not marry a righteous woman? Simple question. Like, why would you marry a woman who is not righteous or who's not incessantly and daily striving to be righteous? How how would you want a woman who is not righteous to raise your children? Never happened. That's why this element, this unequivocal desire for your wife to submit to you as her husband is a critical element in terms of you vetting your potential spouse. And let there be no mistake, if she's not sure about submitting to you, if she's got to think about it, if you see it's kind of like, oh, well, what do you mean by submit? Leave her alone. If she doesn't know what it is, leave her alone. Leave her alone, man. Life is too short. I've been around, and you don't need it. I don't care how beautiful she is, how fashionable and stylish she is, how cute she is, how mashallah, like all that stuff will disappear. It'll disappear, sooner rather than later. And I guarantee you, the minute that you have a child and you see what she's putting into that child, all of that cuteness is going to disappear real quick. Okay? So, subhanallah, put the Deen first. Put the Deen first. Brothers, put the Deen first. You know, don't be distracted by all the glitz and the glamour and the cuteness and the having a good time and all of that stuff. Like, brothers, man, keep your focus sharp on the Deen. Recognize that you are the prize. And if you found a girl and she's cool and cute and nice and all these things, but she does not want to submit to you, or she even hesitates to submit to you as her husband, just walk away. Walk away and find yourself a good sister, a strong Muslimah who's willing, not even willing, who wants to submit to her husband, because a righteous woman will submit to her husband. And it's really as simple as that. It's funny because in this day and age, submission is a bad word. It's really interesting how Shaitan takes everything and flips it completely upside down. Your average Western woman or westernized woman, because this Western feminist woke mentality is traveling all over the planet, which is why you got to be super careful, man. It's all over the planet that If you mentioned submission to the average westernized woman, she has a visceral submit. Why submit? Yes, yes, submit, submit. That's the word. So, brothers, if you are getting married or you're looking for your wife, make sure you hone in on this. My assumption is that you're looking for a righteous wife. And if you're looking for a righteous wife, find the woman who is wanting to submit to her husband. Um, Sisters, if you're looking to get married, and maybe you got some of these crazy ideas all up in your head, man, focus on the Quran, focus on our Deen. Okay, we're Muslims. Look for a man and submit to your husband, and look for that in your husband. It doesn't mean that he's going to be perfect. He's not. He's going to make mistakes. Okay, then what? Like, is there a perfect man anywhere? Doesn't exist. But if you find a man who is on his Deen, mashallah, and he's building his life around his Deen, and he's really, really trying, you know, to center his life around the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see him making his effort. He's praying in earnest every day. He's getting up for Fajr. He's making sure his work is halal. He's making sure, he wants to give you your rights. That's a prize. Ladies, that's a prize. Submit to him. Whatever he asks you to do it. Why not? Are you going to do what somebody else says? Like, I'm sure you go to work, your boss says, the company says, the CEO says, do something, and you'll do it for money. Okay. So if you do it for money, why wouldn't you do it for your husband? Why wouldn't you do whatever your husband asks you to do just because he asks you to do it? Hey, sweetheart, can you make dinner? Hey, sweetheart, can you clean the room? Sweetheart, can you rub my back? Sweetheart, can you file these papers for me? Why would you resist? Why would you resist it? What is the point? Why wouldn't you do what he's asking you to do? Because it's helpful to him. Again, we're talking about a man who's on Deen. Okay, we're not talking about a man who is lazy, slovenly, who's abusive, who's not taking care of his business. We're talking about a man who's making his best effort every day to give you your rights, to be a good husband. He's not perfect, but he's trying. Why wouldn't you do what that man asks you to do just because he asks you to do it? If he wants to make love to you and you're not in the mood, why wouldn't you get yourself in the mood? Why not? Are you going to do it for somebody else? Like, why wouldn't you submit to your husband? Simple question. Is there somebody else that you want to submit to? And who? If you're going to submit to somebody else, who? And if you're not going to submit to anybody, well, then you just don't want to be righteous. And why wouldn't you want to be righteous? Why wouldn't you want to be righteous? Like, think about these things. They're infinitely simple, but they're ultimately very profound. And there is a reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used this language and requires righteous women to submit to their husbands. And if you don't emotionally feel that you're there, get there. Get there. Because this is where the rahmah will come between you and your husband. It is nearly impossible for a man who has a wife who lovingly submits to him to resist this woman. It's almost impossible, man. Like whatever you ask her, she does for you, and it's just like it's hard to resist this woman. It's kind of impossible. Oh, my wife isn't watching me. Yeah, boy. So submit to your husband, ladies, and fellas. Be on Dean and don't compromise in what you're searching for. Okay, don't compromise. Don't. And I told this brother, I said, don't compromise even 1 millimeter. Not even like nothing. Make sure the sister is on Dean and make sure that she is looking and wanting and yearning to submit to her husband. And if you find that, you'll find a righteous wife, inshallah. You'll find a righteous wife. All right, fellas, ladies, that is it. If there's any comments, questions, if you'd like to call in, call in. But if you find this content helpful, if you feel that it would help somebody, a brother or a sister that you know, please share this content. And if you're on YouTube, please like this. If you're on Instagram, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Trying to make sure I'm on all the cameras. All right, guys. All right, ladies. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. So let's turn off Facebook. Finish. YouTube. Bye. Finish. And last but not least,